It is 9:15. And what I'm going to do until somebody shows up is sew this coontail together. So I'm having a wild hair day. Just deal with it. It has been super windy in my area of Tennessee. And oh my gosh, when I say super windy, I mean super monstrously, abnormally windy. To the point where I had to go down and actually, I finally broke down and tied the patio cushions on. I bought covers so that I could tie my patio cushions on, you know, the way that normal people do. I've now become a normal person. I'm tying my patio cushions on. I had somebody with me. Hey, Gypsy. I'm sewing a coontail together. In case you're wondering what I'm doing, I am sewing a coontail together. And then I'm going to work on a spirit stick because the stuff that I make, that I craft, that, ouch, I just poked myself, that David takes with him tends to sell really good. And I guess it's because there's not too many of us little native people left, even though I look like an Irish potato farmer. And I tell everybody, I swear I am native. I just look like my Irish daddy. They really, really appreciate the things that I make. Ooh, did she have a concert? How did she do? That's got to be difficult after all that dental work. Or wait, they moved that. Oh, they moved that. But they still did the fillings, didn't they? They moved the dental work, but they still did the fillings. She's going to have to be careful after that dental work or she'll dry sock it. So you tell her I said to be careful after that dental work. I am so glad she had a good show. I almost wasn't going to pop on tonight because I started feeling kind of crappy and I thought I was developing a migraine. This weather is bipolar. I don't know how many winters have we been through. Well, I mean, and I grew up in the land of the blackberry and the dogwood and the red bud, and I mean we have every winter we can blame on anything that's natural. But I'm getting real tired of these winters because I'm not a winter soul. It hurts me and it hurts my body. And so I'm ready for warm weather. So I had a great time Saturday. So if any of y'all didn't know, my body allowed me to go Saturday with my husband to the Spring Planting Festival at Bandy Creek, Tennessee. Now, was I a visitor tourist? Absolutely not. Did I sit in a chair and watch people visit my husband's booth and chitter chatter with people to a point that made him irritated? Yeah, that's what it did. I did at one point, though. He bought me a walking pole, and it's pink camo, I might add. He bought me a walking pole, mostly because we left my cane in the Jeep, and the Jeep had to be parked so far away. He was like, I ain't going after it. So he bought me a walking pole because it was just like $10, and it was adorable, and I had my eye on it anyway because they were next door. And I had to go to the little native girls' room. So he bought me a walking pole. And I'm here to tell you now. I've been walking some because my physical therapist has, really been on to me to do more. We've been doing some resistance training and stuff like that. So I've been doing a whole lot more. But let me tell you what, when I tell you I hiked more than I have hiked just to go pee at this Planters Festival, because while we had a prime spot right in front of the music, we were friends with some of the musicians, so that we got to have a lot of chit chats with our friends. That was fun. Let me tell you what. I bet you I walked a quarter mile to the bathroom and back. And while I was there, I said, you know something, I might as well just on the round trip get you some lunch because that's the only food vendor that's way over yonder too. He said, are you sure you can make that trip? I said, well, if not, I'll just lay down and give up and somebody will scream, there's a woman laying over here. And I said, you'll know it's me and you can come get me. He did not find that near as funny as I did. I thought it was hilarious, but he was like, well, if you want to try. I tried and I succeeded. Now, did it wear me out? Yeah, it wore me out. But I was very proud of myself that I did that. And it really didn't like shock my body the way I was afraid it would shock my body. Because normally when I overdo, I shock my body. It didn't. I sat back down and recovered, and I was like, hot diggity, we're making progress, me and this neuromuscular disorder. And what it is I've hit a plateau where my body is able to do more right now. And I'm trying to take advantage of it before we hit the next decline, because there will be a next decline. And I'm just trying to take advantage of this plateau and do some stuff and make some memories and have some fun times. And me and this raccoon tail are about to fight. So I think I have done well. Now, does everybody else think I've done well? I don't know. But I think I've done well. David thought I did really well. He was very proud of me. I bought me some goat's milk. Oh, it smells like cotton candy. Cotton candy goat's milk. Soap. Goat's milk soap. Cotton candy goat's milk soap. And then I got just regular, like, coconut oatmeal goat's milk soap. So, gosh, now let's all pray. Whoever you pray to him right now, because I'm fixing to thread this needle. And this is where it gets me. Every time. Get in there. Oh, it's just like a heifer wanting to go to sell. She ain't gonna get in the trailer for nothing. Hey, I did it. We had 2 occurrences that really were funny at the sale. And I know a lot of people because I've done a lot of things. And my daddy was, not to brag, but my daddy was a rather big man in the area because he was a very highly sought after blacksmith, and he dealt with a lot of famous horses and famous people, and so everybody knew my daddy. He only ever taught 2 people how to shoe horses. And one of them was this scrawny little boy I went to school with that I didn't think was, I swear I thought he'll get stomped before he gets his first horse shod. But the boy has now been shoeing for like 20 years, and he's doing pretty good. I'm getting so much stronger. I'm very proud of myself. I'm also tanning already, which means I know my body's healthier. So I'm very proud of that too. Although it ain't been tanning weather here lately. It's been hoodie weather again. But anyway, so this little scrawny boy starts shoeing. He's had a 20-year shoeing history. We see each other every once in a while. The first time he ever saw a gay couple, he was at East Fork Stables, where they would call Dad sometimes when people had horse emergencies. And if they were ritzy people with ritzy horses, my dad would show up. And so he showed up. A Pasafina had thrown a shoe, and they did not trust anybody but the top farrier in the area. And so Dad took me and his apprentice. Me, because he knew his apprentice would need help. So I'm standing there, and I'm singing in my head, "We are the 3 caballeros, they say we are birds of a feather." Okay, I'm a Disney person. It happened. That's what's in my head. Because they had the big mustaches and the big bandanas, and they were, they were riding their Peruvian Pasafinas, and they were talking their little language. And sorry, that's just what was singing in my head. And probably if I'd sung it out loud, they'd have probably sung it with me. But one goes and goes, "Well, I'm going to go get us lunch, eh?" And the other one in Spanish says, "Okay, dear," which I caught. Because I was always one of those overachievers in foreign language classes. So I caught on that he said, "Okay, dear." Now, I didn't have a problem with that. I thought, oh, I didn't have a problem with that. At that time, I was listening to Freddie Mercury, although I didn't know who he was. But I didn't have a problem with that. I thought that was cute. I thought they looked cute. They matched. Their horses matched. And I thought, why not? So they get back. And the other two guys, my dad probably had caught on to it at that point, but the apprentice had not caught on to it. So when they came back, he had 2 drinks and only 1 sandwich. And the apprentice was like, oh, they only have 1 sandwich left at the cafeteria? He's like, I know, they had many. He goes, did you not just want more than one? He goes, we share. And he goes, oh, okay. He goes, you must not be hungry. And I'm sitting here trying not to laugh, because who I am. Inappropriate laughter is my thing. Okay, I sewed the coontail. So now when David puts the keychain in, it's stronger and it will last longer for people. And so when he punches that and puts a keychain, it goes through double layers and it's stronger and it lasts longer. And we just like for our stuff to be a little bit more durable than other people's stuff. Anyway, back to the story. So the apprentice had not figured this out yet. Okay, these 2 men who were riding matching Peruvian pasafinas who had on matching chaps, matching bandanas with bolos, he had not picked up on the fact that they were a couple. Until the other one turns to the other one mid-eating the sandwich and goes, "You bite my sandwich?" Just as plain, like Southern talk, as I just said, when they had been speaking in their native tongue. I had to promptly excuse myself because at that moment I saw the look on that young man's face. He figured it out. And I just had to walk away. Because it hit him so point blank. And he was like, oh! And I knew, because I've known this boy my whole life, I knew if I looked at him at the wrong time, then I would lose it. And these men they would think we were laughing at them instead of the situation, because the poor little apprentice boy was just dumping a box for rocks. And so I just had to walk away for a moment. Dad knew why I had to walk away, because Dad, I get my sense of humor from my father. If you haven't seen my father on some of the videos, you can blame him for everything that I do that seems inappropriate, because that's the guy that gave me the genetic predisposition to be a turd. Let me tell you what, the genes are strong within our family. But I got so tickled. Well, this weekend, this little boy walked up, and I knew he looked so familiar. I was like, this little boy looks so familiar, but he's like 10, 11, and I don't know this little kid, but he looked so familiar. And he wanted one of our raccoon hats. Matter of fact, he wanted the very first one I sewed. And David's wheeling and dealing with him, and I'm pulling on David's overhauls going, give him a deal, because this kid had saved up. And these hats are not cheap. They're expensive, because let me tell you, people, they're hard to make. And David, they're hard to tan. David puts a lot of work into them, and then I put a lot of sewing time into them. And so they're not easy by any means. I'm working on a stick now. It's going to be either a ceremonial stick or a talking stick. It's going to have a coon skull on it. But anyway, so I talked David to giving this kid $20 off, which was a pretty good chunk off of that raccoon hat. And I'm telling him, listen, it'll last you your whole life. You'll take care of it. Here's how you clean it. Here's how you do this. And I give him a card, and I said, if you ever bust a seam or something happens, call me. Stick it in the mail, and by golly, I'll fix it. Send it back to you. And David's like, you're going like way, above and beyond. What is wrong with you? And I'm like, I know this kid. I can't tell you how I know him. I just know that I know this kid. And he's like, you don't know every kid, Elizabeth. Stop. You're not everybody's, bonus mom. And I'm like, no, I know this child. And so they go on. The kid gives me a hug. His mom gives me a hug. And they're like, you're so sweet. And I'm like, that $20, David might have liked to have had it in his pocket, but actually we'd rather the kid have a curiosity for Mother Nature and all that comes with it. So we're okay with losing the money as long as the kid is curious and going to keep up this way of life. Because he's talking, he wanted to trap and do all this stuff, and we think that's cute. So I talked David into giving him that huge discount. Now, my husband obviously is a little irritated with me at that point, okay? Little. Not a whole lot, but a little. Because, I milked his good graces just ever so slightly. Because that's what I'm there for, And I'm like, listen, I knew that kid. Somehow I know that child. And, of course, David's rolling his eyes, and he's like, you can't adopt every child, Elizabeth, shut up, And I'm like, hey, buddy, I know him. Well, then we're going to see my mom and dad Sunday because I hadn't seen Granny, and Granny's fixing to have a nursing home stay because my mother is fixing to have hip and knee surgery. So if you got prayers, please send prayers for my mama. She's fixing to go through it. And so while she goes through it, my granny, bless her heart, has to go back into the nursing home, which none of us are happy about, but there is just no other way to do this. There's just so many of us and so many of us still kicking that can actually take care of her. So we're not happy about this, but it is what it is. And I get a message on my Instagram. You want to know what the first sentence on the message was? You want to buy him a sandwich? I said, what are you doing messaging me after all these years? I said, we done turned old and you ain't talked to me in how many years? Why are you messaging me now, boy? Well, that's how we talk to each other. We were always mean to each other. You just have to know me and any of the boys that ever apprenticed under Dad. I was really mean to him. I really put them through their paces. I really did. I was mean because I knew what they were trying to learn, but I never got the recognition for knowing what they were trying to learn. So I really give them grief over it. And he said, my nephew bought a coonskin hat from you and your husband yesterday. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, he was at Dave's booth. And I said, he bought that from Dave, not from me. I said, I just make him. I said, it's my physical therapy for my hands. And he said, yeah, I heard you're not doing so well. And I said, well, I'm doing a lot better, but yeah, I have my moments. And he said, well, I asked enough questions, and when they described you, he said, I knew exactly who it was. And I said, that makes sense. I am rather unique. And he said it meant everything for him to get that. And he said he had saved up and saved up. And he said for you to give him that discount so he could afford that. And he said and still come home with a little bit of money in his pocket. He said that kid, all he's talked about is, oh, Uncle, you've got to come see this. Oh, and he said, so I went over and he said, that's nice work. And I said, well, thank you. And I said, actually, that's the very first one I sewed. I said, and it's purely hand sewn. And he said, oh my gosh. He said, you did amazing work. And I said, yeah. I said, my physical therapist thinks it's great too. I said, I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world. That's how I know who that boy was. He looked just like the boy that had apprenticed under my dad. So I saw the family resemblance, and that's why I had such a strong inclination of, I know this kid, give him a discount. So David at that point was like, well, daggum. And I was like, I told you. I was like, my brain works this way. I felt that I knew the boy. I said, it is just who I am. I said, it's just how I work. I can read people. I swear I can. And so he thanked us a lot. And he said, boy, he's proud of that thing. And I said, well, good. I said, if you ever have a problem with it, I said, you know how to find me. I said, but if he takes care of it, it should last him his whole life. Well, then I noticed this little 7, 8-year-old at the max. YouTube's being a butthole. And then I noticed this little 7 or 8-year-old at the max boy walking past David's booth, and I'm sitting in the back and I'm reading something I picked up along the way of my meandering to the bathroom that was in the back 40. Oh gosh. And he keeps passing. And finally I look and watch him one time and I grin because I just thought it was so cute because the way had his hand in his pocket and you could tell he was in deep, deep thought. I mean, for a 7 or 8 year old, he was in deep thought. And finally, his grandfather walked up and he said, is this your booth? I said, well, it's my husband's booth. I said, he's over there talking to that guy that makes them wood bowls right now. And he said, well, he is just mesmerized by these dream catchers. And I said, well, they're nice. I said, I make them. I said, they're my physical therapy for my hands. I said, but where I'm cost my husband so much money to keep my hands working, I said, I'll let him sell my stuff so I can go to Hobby Lobby more often and keep my physical therapy going. And he kind of chuckled. And he said, is it all authentic? I said, oh, yes, sir. I said, everything on there is authentic. I said, I don't use anything that's not. And he said, well, he's in love with that one that's got the bobcat skull on it. I said, well, the boy has fine taste. That's the most expensive one. And he said, well, every family member that he's run across today, he's given him, a couple, $3. And he said his siblings have done flittered theirs away. He said, but he's held on to it. He said, and he's passed by this booth. He said, I can't tell you how many times. I said, oh, I've seen him lurking. I said, I just didn't know what he was interested in. And he said, well, he was too shy to come up and ask what the dream catcher cost. And I told him the prices on them. And he said, man, that's a little steep for him. And I said, well, it's getting toward the end of the day. And I said, I get a little flexible, and I said, I can kind of tell my husband, I really don't want to have to pack that back up. Or, I think if you try to pack it, I think it might break, And hi, Sam. And I said, so let me see what I can do. And the guy was like, okay. It's like, well, I appreciate that. So David comes back over, and that little boy is still just making passes. And I said, either we've got a predator or we've got an admirer. And David just chuckled. And I said, I think somebody is admiring my dream catchers. And I only had 2 left at that point because they had sold really well for Dave that morning. And I was ecstatic at how helpful I had been to my husband, to be quite honest, because my stuff does not always fly like that. Normally it's the fur that goes flying. And so when my crafting and the things I do to keep my fingers going actually brings in money, and I watch my husband get money back for me doing something stupid, I'm like, woohoo! But David kind of laughed, and I said, I think we have an admirer. I said, I think he's an admirer. I said, I don't think he's a predator. And David said, well, what does he want? And I said, well, his grandpa was over here a couple minutes ago. And I said, I think he wants one of those dream catchers. I said, and I think he saved his money all day. But I said, I think he's still a little short, Dave. And Dave goes, well, I know how you are. What do you want me to do? And I said, well, I don't know how much the little boy has. I said, but if he has at least half of what the price sticker is, I said, why don't you let him take it home? I said, because I know he's passed by here at least 15 times looking at it. And I said, bless his little heart. I said, his eyeballs just bulge when he looks at it. I said, I know he's in love with it. So here he comes back mine. David said, young man, he said, you've been by my booth so many times. He said, I think it's time we talk. He said, what do you fancy over here? A little boy walked up and he said, well, had his hands in his pockets. Well, little strawberry blonde, little flushed face on him. He's nervous. Sir, I like these dream catchers over here. I asked Pawpaw to look at the price, and I think they're a little out of my price range, but I sure do like to walk by them and look at them and admire them. And he talked like he was a 55-year-old man. And so y'all know I immediately fell in love with this little feller. Any little kid that talks like they're 55, I'm going to adopt right then and there. You better watch that child because I'm going to adopt him. I'm going to take him home. You better hang on to your kid. And he was so precious. And David said, well, he said, I'm fixing to have to load all this stuff up here soon. He said, I don't rightly care to load everything up again and again and again. And he said, one of the things I have to load up again and again and again, he said, is these hoops. And he said, they're real easy to break. He said, so, I'd like to sell them if I could. He said, so let's talk. And that little boy goes, I don't have nowhere near what you're asking for, mister. He said, I appreciate that. He said, I'm just looking. He said, maybe one day I might try to make me one. And I said, well, wouldn't it be easier to make you one if you had one at home you could look at to go by? And he kind of looked at me. And at that point, I think he realized I was on his team. And I said, I bet you. I said, if you tell him how much you adore that, he might just cut you a deal. I said, because it means a lot to him when we find little people that like what we do. I said, because most of the little kids around here don't like what we do. And he said, oh, I think it's neat. Oh, it's the neatest thing. He said, oh, I'd love to be able to do this stuff. Of course, that got David right smack in the heart. You know how David is. Hey, Mimi. And, where's my bag of fur? And, well, then he came out and he goes, sir, I've only got, and I think it was either 25.10 or 20, it's either 25.10 or 21.50. For the life of me, don't ask me, I can't remember. And, I kind of elbowed Dave. And Dave said, well, no, I think we can work with that. And that little boy just got all kinds of excited. Bless his little heart. You could just see him he just got all kinds of excited. Tickled me to death. And David said, now, singles, I lose them. He said, I just lose them. He said, ask my wife. He said, I can't hang on to them. I lose them. He says, I don't want no dollar bills. And he said, change is about the same. He said, I lose change real easy too. He said, how about you just give me that 20 and we'll call it even. And that little boy, he goes, oh, but sir, that's not enough. That's not enough. And David said, well, he said, I think it's enough. And he said, I think it might have been made for you. And he said, because, he said, my wife is special that way. And he said, she sometimes thinks that these are made for specific people. And he looked at me and I said, I think he might be right. I said, I think it might have been made just for him. I said, I have that feeling. And that little boy goes, you mean you made that for me? And I said, well, maybe in all my infinite wisdom, I said that the good Lord has given me and my Cherokee genetics have given me. I said, maybe they knew today a little boy would need a dream catcher. And I said, have you been having some bad dreams? And he said, yes, ma'am, I have. And I said, well, I have real good luck with my dream catchers. And I said, they do awful good work. I said, I've got one little girl who ain't had a bad dream in over a year after getting hers. I said, so maybe it'd do good for you too. I said, but if you get home and you still have bad dreams, I said, you'll have a piece of me there with you. You won't have to feel alone when you're having a bad dream anymore if you wake up. And he goes, that's a problem. I wake up and I'm alone and it scares me. And so obviously, Grandpa was hearing this for the first time. Imagine the things that I drag out of children that probably I shouldn't. But it just happens. People just tell me their life story. I can't help it. So the grandpa then does the transaction with Dave, and that little boy, I teach him how to bag it, to be careful, and how to treat it, and how to keep the feathers bent so they don't break, and he just runs off. And that grandpa hugs me so hard. And he said, I just learned more about my grandchild, he said, than I have ever known. And he said, because he spent 10 minutes with you. And he said, who are you? And I told him my name. And I said, I'm a retired parole officer and counselor. And I said, probably he's just growing up and going through some hormonal changes. and said might have some, he's got a lot of siblings. I said he might be going through some jealousy issues or, some establishing of the pecking order in the child line. I said, no, those things happen. I said, but if these dreams do not stop, and I said, if he becomes more withdrawn, I said, please tell me that you will get him in to see somebody. And I said, just so he can have a conversation with someone who's purely neutral about, if these dreams persist. And he said, oh, I will, ma'am, I will. And I give him the name of 2 sliding scale agencies in the area that work with families that have, multiple children and, not a lot of moolah, because counseling's expensive. Let me tell you what. But he went home with that dream catcher, and I hope to my goodness that, that just gives him the momentum, even if it's just a psychological, push to think I'm not going to have these dreams anymore. I'm fine with that. Just as long as this little guy gets a good night's sleep. That's all I want. So we made several friends, and doggone it if I didn't find an old friend that my dad had trained to shoe horses, and I got to pick on him. So he was my age. Met his nephew for the first time. Met a great family. Met a whole family of redheads. And I said, Laws have mercy. If y'all were here and saw my son, you would steal him. I said, he'd fit right in. They were adorable. Met a whole lot of very interested people. Got invited back. David got invited back to the fall storytelling. Oh, I'm covered here now. To the fall storytelling event at Bandy Creek in September, October. They kind of do a spooky thing. But then he also has gotten invited to the Pioneer Days at Ted Burndellis in Livingston. I think it's in Livingston. I think it's in Overton County. He's been invited to the Pioneer Days. Next weekend, he's going to a Head Start in Clark Range. We may be chased away by the mothers. I don't know how that's going to go over. I'm hoping I feel like going because I've been doing so much physical therapy so I can get out and about. And I'm doing pretty good. But it's a fundraiser for the local Head Start and daycare program in the area. And so you get to go and sell, but you also have to give something up for auction, which I think we enjoy that anyway. So we gave a few things up. And we're going to go and see what it's all about because we've never gone to this one. I love this new thread. It's like a sea foamy green. It's waxed jute. I love it. It's such an odd color, but it goes really well with the colors of a fox. Just really, really well. So we had a great time. It was supposed to last till about 5, but people started kind of filtering off at about 4. And so I kind of looked at David and I was kind of like, oh, lady's getting tired. Let's move her on out. And so we kind of took off a little bit early. And by the time that we took off, I had gotten a little wobbly. I'm not going to lie. I just pulled my own knot loose. I had gotten a little wobbly. But I had also made it all day. So, heck far, I ain't going to fuss too much about making it, all day and then finally getting a little wobbly when I made it all day. Now my nose is going to run. So, I made it all day. Got a little wobbly there at the end. Of course, all I have to do is sit there and watch David pack. So, I sat there until he told me to get out of my chair so he could pack it. And then we drove home. And then the poor man went to work for 5.5 hours. If y'all think my husband is crazy, he is. The man works nonstop. I don't know how he lives. He come home, unloaded the Jeep, and went to work for like 5.5, 6 hours. And I was just like, okay. He did have the next day off, thank God. And he took me to see Mom and Granny. And he picked his anchors up at the farm. So we've had a big day. Fly on your wife, sweet. Oh, you have. Oh, honey. I can be a heifer too, but today I'm in a good mood. I tell everybody I'm one of the people you get what you give. And I can be a daggum heifer sometimes too, but I'm normally a pretty nice person. Even the people I supervised in my state, and I supervised like the violent men and the murderers and stuff, I never really had a problem that I couldn't talk my way out of. I think the good Lord just gave me the gift of gab because he knew I was going to put myself in varying circumstances that I did not need to be in. So he thought I'd better give her the way to get out of these things. But we had a good weekend. I was tickled that my body held up. I was tickled that I didn't go in a flare when this weather shifted. Now I have, apparently my nose is going to run out. I have slowed down, and today I have had to rest more than normal. But, I have still gotten quite a bit of stuff done, and I have still done more than is normal. Now I have my nurse recertification on Friday, and I know y'all have really felt good about me having my nurses and stuff with me through the winter and stuff. But I really think I'm ready to be without them for the summer, because the winter is my hard time when my body does not like to work, and I really kind of am worse than an MS patient during the winter. But summer I normally get some ease. So I'm thinking, I might actually get discharged for a while unless I have a problem that I need to call them back for and say, hey, I need you back. I'm also switching back to the other insurance. That was much better, even though it cost a whole lot more. I was treated better and I got better treatment, and I was not talked to in the manner that I have been talked to by this other company. So I just ain't gonna have that. So I'm gonna, YouTube is being a booger, but I am switching back to my old insurance that was much more expensive, but it was also much better. I put Gypsy to sleep when I talk. If I call her late at night, I'll end up hearing her snore, and then I have to end the conversation and then send her a good night message. Now, tomorrow, if I feel up to it, David's going to run me over to Jan. She's about 20 minutes away, and she's got an industrial sewing machine, and he's going to let me sew a few hats so that I can get the tops and the sides on, and I don't have to do that with my hands because, oh my gosh, that's tough. I've gotten to where I wear a thimble so much, I think it's a piece of jewelry. But I'm going to put 4 or 5 together, the hard spots together, and then that way when I get home, I can do the finishing touches. And all of this, my physical therapist, I've got 2 different kinds of arthritis in my hands that are making my knuckles just grow quicker than summer squash after a big rain. And so my doctors are like, whatever you do, do not stop using your hands, because once you stop, the kind of arthritis that I have, it will basically take over. And so I am trying to go and keep my hands as busy as possible. I'll take that off, because I know if I do stop, like the doctor said, my hands will give up. Now, obviously, I've got to find him a toupee, okay? Because we got all the fur on the underneath side and a whole lot of glue. And obviously, we're going to have to find him a little bit of it. I don't want all the bone showing. I want some mystery, okay? But I'm also going to put gemstones in his eye sockets. Probably lapis labradorite or moss agate. I don't know yet. And I'm going to give him a little bit more of he's not going to belong to the hair club for men, but he's going to have a little bit more hair up here than what normal. Oh, and look, because I did all that work with my hands, David got my nails done. That one's got a dream catcher, and that one's got a bear claw. Wasn't that sweet of my husband? he does try to pamper me when I try to do all this weird stuff. So he got a lot of praise for my weird stuff this weekend, though, so I guess it was well deserved. It was well earned by me. Watch, this needle be too big. Dad, burn it, Elvis. I was going to bead this, but I guess I'll bead it later. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I wrapped it with color there, but I'm going to wrap the handle with leather. And then I might add some color down here as well. But then I'm going to do the feather drops. And then up here, I actually have something that a friend gave me that I don't know if I can take it apart. She told me to take it apart and use it for parts. I don't know if I can, because it's so beautiful. It is a full-fledged tribal necklace handmade out of deer antlers, and it's got a thunderbird on the butt of the deer antler used as the circle. And I just don't know if I can take it. I mean, somebody put some love into that. I just don't know if I can take it apart and use it for pieces. I don't know if my heart will allow me to do that. So we shall see. I'll have to think about that for a little while, because that's going to bother me for a bit. But I need to put some drops on this, some feather drops on this. And so I use these water buffalo horn beads they're carved out of water buffalo horn. And then I have bison column bones too, but I don't use them as often. They're a little bit more expensive. But I use these around my feather dangles, because otherwise I have to split every feather shaft and wrap it with twine. And that gets tedious, let me tell you. That gets a bit irritating at times. So this works much better for me, and this is how I cheat. It's still authentic, but I don't have to split that feather shaft, because that is irritating to do. I'm just going to tell you. Somehow a little pearl bead got in the middle of that one. I don't know how that happened. I use a lot of wood, and I've got some turquoise in here too, but the turquoise is terribly small turquoise right now. And so I have to layer it on with actual twine. And the actual twine I have to then sew. And that takes actual time. So I have to kind of pick and choose what I'm doing when I'm doing it. So I think I'm going to use this twine, so it's the same color coming off the thing. I don't need a whole lot of it. I'll show you these feather drops, and then I'll shut up. Let you go for the evening. All I'm going to do is make a loop, because I will put a spot of glue to hold this up close to the fur. So I just doubled that over and just made a little loop, and I'm just going to use that in the hair to anchor it and kind of hide it. Fur is a very forgiving medium. I'm learning so much from this lady, though, that has the industrial sewing machine. Oh my gosh. I just want to sit beside her and soak up her wisdom. She is so smart. And she's so creative, and she's so sweet. And I met her all because Gypsy wanted to come down and go to a just a little hole-in-the-wall thrift shop on a old country road that literally you would think you was taking somebody down to knock them in the head and bury them. She wanted to go and see this. Oh, it killed my glue gun. She wanted to come and see this shop. And lo and behold, I was admiring a Singer sewing machine. And so was this other woman. And you could tell we was both drooling over it. It was so pathetic. We were both just like mesmerized with how the age and how good a condition it was still in. And lo and behold, she swaps information. And she says, "No, I'm giving you my information to call me. Please don't be a stranger." I said, "Oh, honey, I will not be a stranger. You don't know me. I will not be a stranger." And so she immediately starts messaging me that evening, sending me ideas because I was telling her what I was having a problem trying to figure out how to do. And she goes, "Well, I've got an industrial sewing machine." She goes, "Just come on over and use it and we'll figure it out." So off I went because my husband knows if I get the idea to do something, I go do it. So I told him we're going to have to go meet these people. Her husband's an ex-Marine. He's a sweetie pie, but he's an ex-Marine. And she has the most beautiful industrial machine. I mean, beautiful industrial machine. And there's one feathered angle. And I will add little smaller feathers on the way up too. And then she shows me how to use it. She's like, "Do you know how to sew?" And I'm like, "Yeah, my mama taught me how to sew." She shows me the things that are different on this machine. And she goes, "Here, have at it." Okay. And I start sewing. And she's like, "Well, you absolutely do know how to sew." And I'm like, "Yeah, my mama did try to make me out to be a lady." She failed miserably in some components because before I could go to kindergarten, I could hitch up a 6-horse team, draft team. Because my grandpa didn't like to bend over to do the belly strap, so he would send me under the Belgians and the mules. I didn't mind. They were tame. And so I could hook up 6-horse team before I could go to school. I could take care of broiler houses before I went to the kindergarten. I was a farm child. But my mother did make me learn how to sew because she was bound and determined that I was going to have some lady tendencies because I lacked so many others. And she said, "You sew real good. You know exactly what you're doing." I said, "Well, my mother is the one you should sing praises to because every time I could sneak away, I would sneak and go to the barn and leave my mother wondering where in the heck I went." I said it took her, I think, 2 weeks to make me put a vest pattern together. A vest pattern which has like literally 3 pieces, y'all. Because she couldn't find me and keep me in the house long enough to put it together. But she did teach me how to sew. And she did squall at me enough to get me in the house so that I would figure it out, and not be a complete tomboy. I would have some lady qualities about me. I knew how to cook because my grandma would make me come in when I would work the tobacco fields with my grandma and grandpa during the spring when everybody else was going to school or busy. And my brother, who was very jealous that I had time with them, would then terrorize me on the farm afterwards. Like, I had pigtails that when I tied them, they were down to my butt. That's how long my hair was. He tied me to the corner post of the sow lot. Now, if you ever grew up on a farm, you stay away from them pigs, especially them, 500 plus Durocs and Poland China and big old nasty pigs. He tied me to the corner post of the pig lot, and I was there squalling until Grandma and Grandpa heard me and came running. And of course, they were super glad that I was okay, but I still got a whipping. I don't know why I got a whipping. I didn't tie myself to the corner post, but we all got whippings all around. But my brother would do stuff like that to me all the time because he was jealous that he had to go to school and I was still able to help on the farm. But I was sitting in tobacco and taking care of broiler houses and working with beef cattle. So I didn't, I was like, what is so special about this? Now that I'm older, I understand the time I spent with them was very precious. And now I'm I appreciate it much more than I did. But he still didn't have Tommy to the corner post of the sow lot, because she come up a rootin' and scared me to death. And I'm sorry, but I was all of about 60 pounds soaking wet back then. She could have eaten me for dinner and nobody would have found me ever. I was terrified, and I'm still to this day do not like pigs, which is hilarious because if you know me, you know that for about 5 years I guided hog hunts at my brother's hunting lodge. Wild Russian boar. And you would think that after being scared of like a Poland China or a Duroc, I would not, tease a wild Russian boar. Oh, but no, I have no sense. So, yeah, that's exactly what I did. I guided hog hunts. Wild Russian boar. Most of them averaged, around 400 pounds. We had some that were monsters. We called them Tennessee Terror hunts because they were big ones. I'm trying to do this gathering knot. Give me just a second here. But I've had quite the life. But my whole life, the first thing I said to him when he said, "You want to help me down at the hunting lodge," was, "You better not goddamn tie me no goddamn sow lot." And he just laughed because to him that was a great memory. To me, not so much. So, now what I will do is put a little bit of fur covering over the knots, just tiny little drops of fur. And that way you can see the beads, but you'll not see all of the string in the fur. And I'll put a big one there. And I'm going to use rabbit fur, and I might have a little bit of fox left. So, but yeah, I got in hog hunts for a long, long time. I'm an interested person. You grow up in the sticks, I think it's just prerequisite. You got to be an interesting person because, good Lord, the stuff you have to do to make money, to earn money. My husband, I told y'all when we first got married, he adopted my children. My ex-husband sadly hit sorry and kept going. And when I remarried, I married David. If I hadn't met David, I would not have remarried because, men. Not my favorite creatures to deal with. I'd rather actually have to deal with a wampus cat than another man. But he adopted the kids, and we was poor as whippoorwills. And Lane needed an antibiotic. I can't remember what for. He had strep throat or something other. And it was going to be like $30. We didn't have good insurance back then. And I was like, how the heck are we going to find $30 for this antibiotic? He's got to have it. That man took a bag and a digger, a handheld digger, and went in the woods. He dug Golden Seal on Blood Root or whatever was in season at that time. Come out, sold it to the herb store, and went and bought the antibiotic that my child needed. And it was at that moment I knew I would never have to doubt this man or worry about trusting this man, that this man was going to do whatever was necessary to take care of these children, and that I needed to shut my mouth and trust him. He showed me all I needed to know in that one day, that he was in it for all the right reasons. And that was 20 years ago. We've been married 20 years. And we never had any kids of our own, but he adopted my two from my first marriage and raised them. Of course, they're his. He adopted them. They've got his name. And I'm lucky. I know most people say, would never say, "Oh, I'm divorced, I'm lucky." I am so lucky that my ex-husband vacated the area, because I'm sorry, but he thought he was slicker than a lard bucket in the summer sun, and all he was stupid with a wandering eye and a very bad habit. And he's on wife number 3 now. Still ain't quite figured out that happiness does not come from the divining rod that you think you have nestled in your Wranglers. But maybe one day he'll figure that out, because I bet you $10 he never finds water with it. But, maybe one day he'll figure it out. That happiness, is just what you have to make in life, and not what you think should just be gifted to you from the universe. And if he ever does find water with that thing, I'll take it back. But I guarantee you he ain't gonna. So that thing ain't no divining rod. But men, they get full of themselves sometimes. They think they're special. Yeah, farm kids grow up weird, to say the least. We get introduced to stuff that most kids never have to worry with. We see a lot of stuff we probably shouldn't ever see, but it really does help to make us better people, because we have a bigger understanding of where food comes from and what the actual cost of that dinner plate is, and what it's like to send your best favorite friend, your best favorite bovine friend, to freezer camp, because you got to eat that winter, and it ages you, and it makes you mature in ways that you can handle life so much better than a lot of the freaking adults walking around now. Well, I'll say freaking. A lot of the post-pubescent people masquerading as adults in today's society, because I don't think they're really adults. I think we've got an eternal there's this eternal juvenile age. It just keeps growing. You can claim to be a stupid juvenile forever now, and nobody will say anything to you. You just claim to be a stupid juvenile until you're 35. Now, I'm sorry. No. Once you turn 18 and you are liable for yourself, you got to start acting the age. And we've got a whole crew of people in this world that will not act their age or take up for themselves for anything that they do, say. They don't believe in repercussions. And if they do, then they want to scream, well, I'm still young. I don't understand how the world works. Well, I'm sorry you didn't have your eyes open as you grew up, you little baby bird that needed to be kicked out of the nest. If your mama would have called me, I'd have kicked you out of the nest, because we've got what I call an eternal juvenile situation going on here in the U.S. And they act like they're teenagers up until they're 40. And it's like, excuse me, sir. How old do you think you need to be before you can be responsible for a mortgage and a family? Because you're beginning to scare me with this. I'm an eternal youth, or I'm 45, but I'm going to get online and play Xbox with my buddies. I hope my wife don't get mad. How about you go outside and mow the lawn, or fix the water leak that the plumber ought not have to be called for? I'm perplexed when I look at men these days. And I got a funny when Luke Bryan came out with that song, Hey, I'm a Country Man. I listened to that, and my husband turned and looked at me, and he goes, I guess you're a country man too. And I said, I thought the same thing when I was listening to that, because everything on that song that he was saying a country man could do, I could do too. And I thought, well, I guess I'm a country man too. But we have this whole never-ending juvenile stage in the American population. And y'all, it's got to stop. It's got to stop. We've got to start taking responsibility for ourselves, and we've got to start making people understand that you're growing up, shut your mouth and deal with life. So, But I say so many people that they scare the bejesus out of me. And I see kids walking around and they will sass their mamas. And I'm like, buddy, I would not have lived to make it home if I had spoke to my mother that way. And it's just a whole different world out there now. And some things have changed for the better, but most things honestly have changed for the worse. And this whole eternal juvenile era that these people seem to be stuck in is driving me absolutely nutty, because people ought to know how to behave better than what I'm seeing in behavior lately. Oscar, I wish you knew how to fetch scissors. I'd send you after my craft scissors in the other room. Are you thinking? Are you contemplating? You don't even know what that is. He acted like he thought he was going to do that. Mimi, I could get on a soapbox and preach for an hour and a half. Of course, my daddy was a Baptist minister, so he probably wouldn't appreciate that. But there is a lot going on in this nation that I said many times, if America pulled up to visit my granny, she'd have done cut a switch and took it after it. That's how bad America's gotten. America just needs good switching. And my granny'd make you go get your own switch, which was part of the torture, because you knew if you brought back one that wasn't going to hurt you, she had your number, and you was going to have to go back and get another, and then you was going to have to get the big one that would hurt you. So you had to make the right choice, the right time, and own up to your punishment. And that'll age you. That'll age you real quick when you're a youngin'. But I have to admit, now that I'm older, I'm thankful that I had a granny that would hold me accountable and tell me when I was acting like a little Dilbert. Didn't think it meant a lot then, but it surely does now, as I watch other people struggle to just do simple things like take their children to Walmart without a fit being thrown. I'm terribly thankful that I had grandparents and parents that would not allow me to act like an idiot. And I'm not mean. I wasn't a mean parent, but we had rules. If I fed you and I housed you and I loved you and I'd take a bullet for you, then by golly, you were going to respect me. And if you did not respect me, then by golly, we were going to have to talk about it. And I did pretty good with my kids. I got them all grown up and out of the house without any issues. Now, once they turn into adults, they go through these little pity parties. And they just have to grow through them. You know, it takes they become me big chief wampum, hear me da-da-da roar. And they have to go through their I am a man. Or I'm responsible now. And then when they grow out of those, you know, then they show back up and they're like, I'm done with that now. And I'm like, thank the Lord, because it's about to drive me nuts. But, you know, they go through certain stages and they need to, you know, and it's part of growing up and part of their brain, you know, that myelination process and their brain. What are you staring at? Because I guarantee you it ain't bigger than me. And if it is, then we're both running. I don't think you got nothing to be scared about. I don't think there's nothing on the porch bigger than me. But they need to go through, you know, some of those things to grow up. And then, you know, some of them make it a bit much, but I can respect some of the rituals they need to go through to grow up. Now, some of them they need to shorten and deal with in a healthier manner, but I can respect most of them. But in America, we don't have really a rite of passage for our children anymore. And so the rite of passage has basically become annoyance of everyone else. And that really irritates me. So, do you need to go outside and potty? Okay, well, you're going to have to wait, because I've just put this last piece of fur on this. You're just going to have to chill for just a minute. That is the furnace. If you're going to be scared of everything tonight, we're going to have problems. My dog, bless his heart, he ain't gonna protect me from nothing. I guess it's a good thing he got me as a master. Okay, so now I've got my feather drops on better. They look better now, right? They look so much better now from both sides. And so once I give him his toupee, I might even paint his nose, and I'm going to give him stones. I'm going to give him gems for eyes. And then I will leather wrap, and I might put one more feather down here. I'm not for sure. And he will be either a ceremonial stick or a talking stick. I don't know. It'll come to me. I have to talk to him for a little while and let him speak to me and see what he wants to become. You wanted 12 grandchildren, because, well, I've only got one so far. I don't know if they're cheaper by the dozen, but I don't really want to find out. I tend to do well with the little smart mouth teenagers that have problems. That's what I worked with, the demographic, the ones that were in state's custody because they were either in gangs or had violent natures, and it was either be in state's custody or go to prison. And so I did counseling with those kids that had trauma backgrounds and addiction issues. And I enjoyed it. You know, I met a lot of kids that I really, really got attached to, you know, and I really worry about, to this day, I worry where they are and how they're doing and what become of them. But, you know, that's not for me to know. But I sure did try to do good, honest work with them when I had them in my counseling groups. But I miss them. I miss them a lot. Every once in a while, when they get grown up, they'll find me to send a thank you. And I think that's sweet. Some of them don't. Most of them do, and I think that's sweet. It's nice to know that you meant that much to somebody, that they remember you, even when they get into adulthood, even though you know, they were 12 to 16 when you were part of their world. It's very sweet that they'll remember you and find you just to say thank you, you know. And so I get really tickled when it means that much that they find me and thank me. I think that's really sweet. My husband gets less tickled because he's like, if they can find you, then the people that you had on parole can find you. And I'm like, listen, it is 2023. If people want to find you, you can't hide. You're just going to have to be well armed and prepared. That's all there is to it. But I think it's sweet when they find me and say thank you, and that I changed their lives or gave them some little hint of knowledge that they carry through the world with them. I think it's sweet. And I appreciate it when they take the time to tell me that. Because sometimes I wondered if I was just beating my head up against a tree. Some of them I did. I wondered if I was really doing any good at all with some of them, because some of them just seemed ply blank set on being little demons. And so it's nice to know that a lot of them grew up and had positive lives, because some of them didn't, you know. And then when I moved on and went into parole, and I did like a 5 to 8 county rotation depending on where the parole board or the judges sent me. I'd run across one, and I'd have to stand up and say, you have to recuse me from this client. I cannot take this client on probation because I was formerly this client's counselor at a wilderness camp. Look, he has a toupee now. I may paint his face with the medicine wheel colors and then give him his stone eyes, his gem eyes. Do that. I will put leather cement here so this will not move, and then leather wrap this and put a thing down here. And I'm going to have to get on lint roll myself, or I'm going to absolutely until they have a smart mouth. Oh, my grandchild will probably have a smart mouth from the get-go because I have smart mouth. Oh, I'd say you do, mister. That's hard to get attached and to have that pull away and stuff. It's difficult. It's difficult. And that's something that my son has found. He's found power in that. He's found power in that pull away. And so I try not to react, because if you react, it makes it worse. So I just kind of bide my time and wait until they bring her back around. But I try not to react to the power plays, because I know if I do, it'd just make it worse. So I just shut up and let them think what they want to think. If they want to sit at home thinking, ha ha ha, we're ruining her day, I just let them sit at home think that. And then when they get over their pinky in the brain moment, realize they can't take over the world, and I'll get back to enjoying life. But I mean, we all have a pinky in the brain moment in life somewhere. I mean, we all do. At some point, we all think that we made the world go round. And so I try to have a little bit of grace and compassion. Although I have a cutoff point. Betty, when I reach it, everybody knows. There's no question. When I'm done, every blade of grass in the yard knows I'm done. There's no question. I think that's why I work so well with violent male offenders. I had a very good way of telling them I was not a good person to play their game with. I saw a couple of them the other day too when we was down there, and they said howdy. It is really nice, even though it's awkward sometimes for some of them because they stumble upon you and they don't really know, if you want to say hi or if you want to be outed. But I always grin at them, and they're like, "Hey, Miss Liz," and then when I remember their name, they're always like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah, I remember your name," and they're like, "Well, you probably supervise thousands of people." Yeah, but people are people, and I remember y'all's names. But it's always sweet to see them kind of notice you and then kind of do the big pull back of like, should I say something to her or not? And then I try to put him at ease with a laugh or something, because I really do enjoy seeing them. I really have never, I've only been threatened a couple of times, and those people weren't in their right mind, so I don't even think that counts. I mean, you have to be in your right mind and declaring certain words to really threaten somebody. I put a little more otter hide on him right there. I thought that was pretty. Put just a little bit more on him. Sometimes they use these when they do the grass dances too. So I try to make them to where they won't lose part of it when they're dancing, because I don't want them to be dancing and to shake something off. So that's why I use the leather cement. And I even glue down the edges of the fur. And my husband says it's complete overkill because I use Gorilla Glue. But I don't think it is. I think it's necessary, so I do it. I will have to de-glue him later. This is going to be pretty. And he's mostly just for decoration. He will not rattle. He's just going to be a spirit or a talking stick, and just kind of a glorified costume accessory. Or if they have a tribal meeting and they want to pass him, he will be the talking stick, and whoever has him can talk. But I'll have to finish the rest of him later because I'm covered in glue now. And my Pugazoo's got to pee. And I need to do a couple of house chores after I change my top and get ready for tomorrow because David's going to take me to see Jan again tomorrow to sew a few more hats. So I'm going to have to get my honey to bed or I won't be able to go. I've been awful slow today. So I'm hoping tomorrow I'm not near as slow. Mimi, it was so nice to see you in here. We have a great group of people. Gypsy's been with me from the get-go. We've got a whole bunch of wonderful people that come in here. We've got Denise, Ashley. Oh my God, we've got so many that come in here. A fly on the wall. I've seen your name a couple times now. Sam is from all the way across the pond. Over there where they talk funny. Of course, y'all think I talk funny, so. So it's been wonderful visiting, and I'm trying to get back to doing more crafts as my health allows me. So if I finish him not on camera, then I will definitely upload pictures to the community page. Or I will sit down tomorrow night and finish him. It just depends on how much energy I come back from Jan's with. We'll see how depleted I am after sewing all day tomorrow. But it's been fun, y'all. I'm glad we had this conversation and we tromped through some theological and rhetorical questions that we all needed to think about and ask. And let's do it again tomorrow at the same time. I'm Cumberland Plateau, Tennessee. I'm up on the knob. I'm up on the crag. So I am deep woods hillbilly. I'm educated. I have my master's in psychology, and I can stop twanging, and I can speak perfectly well. But I admit to twang, and I love my twang, and I have the dying dialect, and I'm gonna hang on to it. So, Mama T, if you're that close, you might ought to email me. My email is watersworkload, all one word, watersworkload@gmail.com. Oh, enjoy. Well, if you're not here tomorrow and I do this, I'll leave it, and in a few days it'll load. The lives will load to my page, and you can watch it. But I will put pictures up in the community section if I finish it tomorrow. So if you don't get to see it, I will put pictures up, and then when the live does roll over, it will show on my video so you can catch up. So Mimi, there's my email that Gypsy just put out there. So if you want to, and you say you're that close, shoot me an email. And most people that are super close, we actually start getting together and doing lunches and visiting, and kind of we've made a little tribe. So if you can tolerate me. I swear, the next time I come on here, I won't look like a homeless person. I will fix my hair, which is so healthy now since Gypsy cut it. I will fix my hair and put on makeup, I promise. Oh, you're not a fan of these types of videos. Well, honey, it takes all kinds. I mean, takes all kinds to sit on the merry-go-round of life. Wouldn't it be horrible if we was all alike? Wouldn't it be horrible? I mean, you think it'd be horrible if you had to stand in a room full of me, but then I think it might be horrible if I had to stand in a room full of you. But the beautiful thing is we get to stand in a room full of everybody, and we get to pick and choose who we want to be with, who we want to emulate, who we want to learn and grow from. And that's the beauty of this platform, is that if you don't like somebody, you can go and find somebody that you can like. And I hope you do find somebody that you like. But if you walk around with pucker factor 25, it's going to be real hard to find somebody that is going to be able to wedge into your world. So open up your heart and unclench your buttocks. And you know, there's lots of good things that happen. Somebody will see that open heart and they'll want to get to know you. And I bet you have a whole lot less hemorrhoids in your older golden years. There's my last moment of wisdom. Y'all have a good night and love them even if they don't love you, because God said to do it. I obey God if nobody else. So love you. Have a good night. Stop clenching, honey. It's not healthy for your butthole. Night, y'all.